Near the Height, Chapter 1, The Old Man.
Chadum, chadum, bala, bala, chadum, chadum. Fergus rolled his pen between his fingers and jotted down a few scrawny notes onto a pad. This was to be his latest song, an epic in E. However, before Finyard Ferguson III had a chance to write down another note, there was a terrific explosion, and his room burst into flames. A tragic end, poor Finyard. I knew him not well. Scranthum Hatterjack disappeared into the bushes and made his way across Farmer Noakes's cornfield to the tiny village of Proport beyond. Under the village bridge he scrambled and continued his peaceful summer afternoon's fishing. He had caught nothing all day and was debating whether to return home when an old man shuffled up to him out of the brilliance of the reflected sun. "Heard you fishing from the bridge?" The old man squinted his eyes and hung his head to one side, observing Scranthum's every move. "Oh, really?" replied Scranthum, wondering at the purpose of the old man's visit. "Nice day for fishing in the shade." "Yes, very nice," replied Scranthum, now getting impatient with the old man's vague manner. "Just passing, were you?" he inquired with a certain degree of apprehensivity. "Yes, my boy, I like the summer. It's full of life. It reminds me of when I was a boy. I used to fish here, this very same spot. Have you caught anything?" "No, I haven't. Haven't seen anything all day," Scranthum replied with impulsive relief, as if he'd been holding his breath for the whole of the conversation. "Ah, well, you won't." "Why is that?" "Fish moved from here years ago. Try further down the stretch by the old cattle shed." "No, thanks very much. I'll do that." "Aye. Well, I'll be going, lad. Leave you with your own mind." He trundled back into the sunlight and onto the bridge. Scranthum waited until the old man had gone before throwing all of his fishing tackle into the canal, and with that mission completed, he returned to his bike and pedalled home.
The Bread Knife, Chapter 2. Aunt Lorriquette bent over the freshly set table and placed a plate of buttered jam scones next to the teapot. She was a typical old auntie with her dull, flowery pinafore, hair tied in a bun, and narrow-rimmed spectacles on the end of her nose. But she was a dear old soul, as all aunties can be.
"Come in, Scranthum, put your shoes in the rack,"
she shouted across the front room, making the budgies squawk, as if it so often did. Scranthum bounded in and deposited himself in his chair at the table.
have a nice day's fishing, dear? Yeah, ruddy amazing. Oh, Scrantham, really? You shouldn't swear. You do know that, don't you? Oh, just get on with the tea.
Aunt Lorriquette passed him the buttered bread, and he began to drown it in lashings of homemade jam.
Cup of tea, dear?
Why, bother bloody asking. You know we always have a cup of tea at tea time.
Yes, all right, dear. Pass us your cup.
Scrantham thrust his cup in Aunt Lorriquette's direction, and continued to stuff handfuls of jam and bread into his podgy face. Scrantham was 13, and an intelligent lad, although he never seemed to show it. He didn't have many friends, and those he did have were rather bullied into it. He wasn't a tall boy for his age, but he was stocky, or one could say a little overweight. Scrantham seemed to have a grudge against everyone. Perhaps it was because he watched his father push his mother over a cliff, whilst they were on holiday, when Scrantham was only 8 years old. His father was then also killed when making a getaway in a stolen car whilst being chased by the Blackpool police force. His car overturned and collided with an ice cream van before bursting into flames, melting all.
Would you like some more bread and jam, Scrantham?
Oh, more bloody bread and bloody jam!
You mean you don't want any bread and jam?
I didn't say I didn't want any bread and jam.
Well, if you do, go and fetch the bread knife from in the kitchen, love.
Oh, bloody Scrantham swung his head, slid off his seat, and trudged into the kitchen in search of the bread knife.
Bread and jam, bread and jam, bread and bam, ham, schlam, that's all we get for bloody tea, bread and jam.
Scrantham picked up the bread knife and slowly ran his finger up and down its length, staring at his distorted reflection in its thick metal blade.
Hurry up, Scrantham, I want to get cleared away.
Holding the knife in front of him with both hands, he drifted back into the front room.
What took you so long, you lazy devil? Come on, you've got these scones to get through yet.
Scrantham held the knife above his head, and with a great roar shouted, "Scones!" His face turned red.
Scones, scones, I'm sick of bread and jam and scones. Stuff your flaming scones.
Aunt Lorriquette turned with extreme surprise as Scrantham thrust the bread knife right into her side. He drew the knife back as Aunt Lorriquette, as if in slow motion, rolled onto the floor.
I'll come home early and make me own bloody tea in future. You can stuff your scones.
Half Aunt Lorriquette's pinafore was now a sticky red, and the red stains were creeping into the carpet.
"Oh, bloody hell! Don't she bleed? It must be all them jam scones."
Scrantham spread the Sunday paper underneath her and began to think of a plan to dispose of Auntie's body.
"Maybe I could chop her up, and feed her to the budgie. Not too messy."
Scrantham paced up and down, thinking of a suitable excuse to explain the sudden departure of Aunt Lorriquette. In some way he had to completely dispose of her body without any trace. A method such as burying is far too unsafe, the police being what they are these days. Very clever, very clever. Then he gave himself a strong slap on the knee and smiled at Tommy, the little green and blue budgie in the corner.
"Tommy! Tommy!"
he exclaimed. "For the next few weeks we are going to enjoy a delicacy from far better than Auntie's scones. Roast Aunt Lorriquette." Tommy began squawking, jumping up and down on his perch and repeating,
jam scones, Scrantham, jam scones."
For the rest of the day and all through the night, Scrantham chopped his auntie up into several pieces on the kitchen table and put them into neat plastic bags, and then placed them at the bottom of Aunt Lorriquette's new deep freezer.
Goodbye this freezer, Auntie. Pity you never realised its full potential. Well, it's full now."
The following day Scrantham spent his time toning down the red blood stain and removing its smell with all sorts of domestic cleaners. He burnt the newspaper earlier that morning. Luckily Aunt Lorriquette's cottage was just outside the main clustered nucleus of houses in the village centre, and so, hopefully, no one heard the vigorous chopping all through the night.
"What an interesting start to the summer holidays," he thought,
as he was walking into the village to buy a rug to cover the still visible blood stain on the carpet.
"Morning, Scrantham,"
called Mrs. Flynn, the headmistress of the village school.
Yes, thank you,"
replied Scrantham, not really hearing her exact words. Mrs. Flynn laughed. He decided to buy a darkly coloured rug so it would be more difficult to tell the rug's age. As he was returning home, he had an idea. It wasn't foolproof, but it was his only chance if he was to try and prove, should he be approached, of course, his innocence. When he arrived back at the cottage, he donned a pair of gloves and began to rip the place apart, not overdoing it, mind, just enough. In the process, he found his auntie's savings behind the wall clock in the back room. £78. He couldn't believe his eyes. He then transported all of the pieces of Aunt Lorriquette and hid them right in the back of the attic. They would be safe there for a couple of days without refrigeration. No? Now he had to inform the police. And as his aunt had no telephone, he leapt on his bike and pedalled madly into the village.
Officer, oh, officer, you must help my auntie. It's disappeared and her cottage has been turned over."
Scrantham bellowed over the reception desk and was swiftly hurried into a police car with 3 other officers and shuttled back to Aunt Lorriquette's cottage. "No, Sarge. No, it's empty." It's strange that. The sergeant rubbed his chin. Did your auntie have any people she didn't get on with? No. All right, son. Make the lad a cup of tea, constable. Right, Sarge. Scrantham began to shake, supposing the constable found some blood somewhere in the kitchen. Any blood could be disastrous. There you go, lad. The sergeant patted Scrantham on the shoulder. Now, tell us everything you know, as it happened, nice and slowly like. Well, Scrantham began, I just popped down to the village, to get Auntie a rug. Scrantham didn't mean to bring the rug into it at all. They might want to move it. Yeah, go on, lad. The sergeant smiled, twitching his bushy blonde moustache as he did so. Scrantham stuttered. I couldn't get a rug. I didn't see any she'd like. Yes, okay, lad. How long were you gone? Down in the village. Just take your time. Scrantham's stuttering grew worse. His actions were clumsy, and his body throbbed violently, hot, then cold. I was down there, let's see, I was down there about 3/4 of an hour. That was Near the Height, a short story written with an abrupt ending. Written and read by Clifton T Gilderffist.